So good afternoon, and thank you for joining me, Heather, today. Not in the UK, so a slightly different kind of viewpoint this time, which is going to be brilliant. And certainly, I think, like we were saying a moment ago when we were sort of chatting, it's the education system's very different, but the message is going to be really good. And certainly, your career journey has got some great insight, I think, for the students watching. So. Just quickly, let us know, what is it you do right now? Because I love what you do for your job at the moment.
Well, thank you. I just want to say thank you for, allowing me to express this to your students and to, your team and stuff like that. So what I do right now is actually I'm a declutter coach and consultant. And basically what I help you do is we start with the physical clutter, but there's still the emotional and the mental that we go through as well. And I help you clear that. And then I also do the, decluttering your business work as well. So like, sort of, you can think of it like a VA. I do that as well. So I'm a multi-passionate, and I've just realized that, you know what, I tried to stick into one thing and I realized, no, I like the multi-passionate. I like helping in multiple areas. So that's what I do right now.
That's brilliant. And I think when you go on to any kind of online business, you are told, aren't you, quite a lot, that you should find like one niche and stick to it. And what I love is you're like, hell no. There's loads of things I want to do, and I'm going to do it, and you're making it a success, which is brilliant because you're proving that there are other options out there. But I bet you didn't sort of sit and sort of at the age of 9 or 10 with your teachers kind of going, when I get older, I want to be a declutter coach.
Oh, no.
They probably would have thought you were nuts, wouldn't they? I want to help people empty cupboards. It's a little bit more detailed than that, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, and it's so funny because, like, when you're 9, like, I think I had a book of when I was going through school and stuff like that of, what do you want to be when you're older? I think I went from like a doctor to a lawyer to a veterinarian to a teacher I went through all of those things when I was a kid. So It was never in my mind one thing. So that's funny that you say that, because I'm like, yeah, no, declutter coach and consultant was never part of that. No, you're right.
But again, you had that kind of multi-passionate viewpoint even back then. You wanted to kind of do everything. So what's your journey been like then, from kind of school to where you are now? What's kind of taken you and brought you to where you are?
Okay, well, in high school, so when I went to high school, we had up to grade 13. So we had grade 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So we kind of, you go through, and I took all my courses, I took all my advanced ones, took my math, took my whatever, and I knew I wanted to do something probably in the kinesiology. So I wanted to be like a sports doctor or whatever. That was, by the time high school came, by the time grade 11 came, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. What kind of course do I need to take? Grade 13, when everyone was, had, applied to their universities, applied to their post-secondary schools and stuff like that, I just went into my guidance counselor and I looked at him like, I don't want to do this. And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, I knew this was going to happen. So he handed me, so because he's known me obviously for the 5 years, and I was that type that, once I made a decision, I made a decision, but once I made a decision not to do something, I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
So he'd actually told me, he's like, okay, listen, I know you're still trying to figure this out and trying to figure out what you want to do. He's like, why don't you go to college, just take a general arts and science. And so, so there was university and there's college. So there's two different types, whatever. I don't know if you guys in the UK have the same deal, whatever. But so I was like, okay, I'll just take general arts and science. And so that's what I did was, and I'm talking like literally everyone's already handing in their like acceptance, where now I'm reapplying again. So so I applied, got in. And as I got there, so we had to take like part of the general arts and sciences. You had to do your histories, your Englishes, maths, science, all that stuff. By first or second month of my first year, I was like, I don't like the histories. I don't like the Englishes. I want to do what I want to do. And I was that type of person. And I'm like, okay, if I don't know where it's going to take me, I'm going to at least learn stuff that I enjoyed. Yeah. So I took psychology. I took like human biology. I took all of the critical thinking. I took, sciences. I took like all of those things that I wanted. And I loved it. I absolutely loved. I did fantastic. I was never a good in high school, I was never good an examiner because I think I freaked out. I got anxiety over it, whatever. But during the class, I could tell you all the answers, but it came to that testing part that I was like, okay, I can do this. By the time it came to college, I had the ideas of, well, whatever, you're just doing this for fun. Like that was my thought. Was you're doing this for fun. You got to figure out what you want to do for life and stuff like that. Cause whatever. So I guess I started being better at testing because I didn't put so much pressure on myself.
Right.
And also learned how I started learning better and how I started testing better. And, I wasn't the type that I don't know how people can do those all-nighters of exam preparations for like 3 days straight. I was like, I need my sleep.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how you people do that. So yeah, so through that, I actually ended up, going through the 2 years of college and stuff. And I still wasn't 100% sure of what I actually wanted to do. I was only, 21, I think. So I had the jobs in between, and I had like, again, it's that multi-passionate where I had more than just one job. Yes, I needed it for life and to, I paid for my own ways and stuff like that. But life threw me some interesting curveballs where it caused me to go, okay, what do I really want? And it took me, I kid you not, I'm now about to turn 37, just figuring out what I actually wanted. And just figuring out, what actually comes natural to me doesn't come natural to other people. And I was like, wait, if I can make a career out of this, I can make a business out of this. So that's where, after numerous jobs and after actually one of them, as we were talking earlier, being fired for the first time in my life and realizing, wait, what do you mean? And it wasn't because of, my performance. It wasn't because of whatever. It was because my schedule no longer worked for them.
Yeah.
And I was, really? I was like, okay. So then that's when I actually, because of being fired, that's when I started my own business locally, which has got me into my online business. So it's funny how so many years when you're in college or in high school, you're like, I got this made. Like, I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait. All right. Curveballs. Okay. Thanks for the curveballs. Now what?
Yeah.
So that's so far how it's gone.
So far, because you never know with change, and that's the brilliant thing, isn't it? And there'll be students here who kind of think they don't really need these videos and stuff because they've got it planned out. They know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to go sixth form and then university. For sixth form for us is like the extended part of education, or they're going to go on to college and then they're going to do university. But they've got it planned. They're going to be a vet, or they're going to be a doctor, or they're going to be an accountant, or whatever it is. And then you start the course, don't you? And you start doing the work placements, and then you kind of go, actually, I don't really like this. This doesn't fit with what I thought it was going to be. And then there's that panic that, oh, I've thought this was the job I wanted for all of these years. I thought this was the career path I wanted for all of these years, and now I don't know what to do with my life because I've realised I don't like it. And I think that's where they panic, and this is why the reason that I'm doing this is for these students to see that actually it happens more than you think, and panicking, you don't need to. There are routes out of it, there are ways through it, but panicking doesn't have to be one of them.
Well, and panicking actually doesn't even do you any good. I know from experience. Because literally, like in that panic stage of, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You're not thinking straight. You're not thinking about what you want. You'll just take whatever you can get. And then you get that and you're like, oh, this is so not what I wanted. Like, this is absolutely not. Whereas learning with people like you and the programs that you offer and stuff, like, oh my goodness, I wish you were around like my area when I was in and stuff, because I was like, I got to that point where I was like, I can choose something that I actually enjoy doing. Like that's something I can do.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't until probably about 3.5 years ago that I realized this.
And I think our generation are probably the worst for it, aren't they? Because we were kind of brought up with this. When you left school, if you were offered a job, you had to be grateful for it and you took it. I remember kind of having conversations with like my mum and things about having like a choice of jobs and go, well, if I get this one, then I don't need to take that one. It was always like, oh, well, what do you mean you won't take it? If you're offered a job, you take it, you say thank you, and you work hard for that person. Because their generation, there wasn't that amount of jobs available, and I know my parents were sort of working when there was the recession, so being kind of pretentious, if you like, to assume you could choose a job, it wasn't what was considered the right thing to do. Whereas now I think the younger generation, like my children's age and probably just those couple of years before then, have a lot more availability to them. There are a lot more choices in careers, isn't there?
That, but the availability of technology that provides them a different type of career that
Yeah.
the generation before us never even fathomed would be existing. So like they are in such a different like life than we ever were, let alone the generation before us, because of that. And it's so amazing. And being able to say, hey, no, you know what? I can do something that I enjoy, that brings my entire schooling together, and use those skills. Maybe it's not for exactly what that course or that program was, but it's using those same skills. Just like any of the other jobs I've had before, I still use those same skills. Like I was a general manager, I was a server, I had multitude of jobs that were totally of different spectrums, but I've used all of them for what I do now.
Exactly, and you kind of collect those skills, don't you? Almost like a little bit of tumbleweed. You know, every little job you have, whether it be a Saturday job or whether it be some work experience, voluntary work, anything, you pick up little skills, don't you? And some of them you kind of go, yeah, I'm never going to use that again. And other things you're like, that's a total nugget. I'm going to kind of keep hold of that one, and that'll help. And I found that when I started my online business, there were things that I was doing where when I thought about where I'd learned that, and sort of say, oh, you know, how do you know about that? And you think back, and it's, you know, something that I did years ago, or a course I took a long time ago, and things, and you think, oh, that did come in handy, or did become useful in the end.
Exactly. Yes. No, and that's exactly what it is, even though, let's say you go to school, you figure out, okay, I wanted to do this, but then all of a sudden you change your mind, and all the students and stuff like that, and they get into that panic mode. Well, don't get into that panic mode. Just know that go to the next step. The
Yeah.
next step is getting maybe that job, so that you can figure out during that job what of that job you enjoy. Do you like being a supervisor? Do you like being a manager? Or do you like just being a worker?
Yeah.
I was never somebody who could be a worker. I always was like, okay, what's the next step I've got? Supervisor, great. What's the next after that? General manager, great. Give it to me, because I was that leader role, and that's where I thrive. But I never would have known that in school alone.
No, you would have sat in history or in PE or whatever and thought, actually, management is my route. You might have been told you've got good leadership skills, but at 15, you don't know really where you can apply those or how great that can be for you much later. And one of the things
Exactly.
I think that I really love kind of with this generation, with the youngsters that are kind of going to be our future leaders, as you know, is like my favourite phrase right now, is that I say to them, they're in such a great position at the moment that if there isn't a job out there that they want, they can create it. They can just kind of make the job up. We didn't have, you know, the kind of the confidence, I suppose, when we were sort of at school to just go, well, actually, I want to do this job, but it doesn't exist. So I'm just going to make it happen, because you'd have been told from everybody around you that that's dangerous and not to do that, and you know that was going to be a bad idea.
And I think, to go on like what I just said about it's too risky, I think it's better if you're not figuring out and you don't know exactly whatever, that at a younger age, it's almost better to be that risky, to create that job that doesn't exist yet at that age, as opposed to right now me trying to do something whatever and being risky. I'm a mom of two, I'm a single mom of two, I've got to bring in that income, I've got to figure out, like, a lot of the time, if you don't know, like, if you think you want to do a job, go be an intern for that person that's doing that job.
Yeah.
Like, that's another thing of, like, learn what actually is involved in that position. Maybe, yeah, you like what's seen on the outside, but what really the details, like, every job has the details. There's things in my business that I'm like, oh, I really don't want to do, but I
Yeah.
know because of the fact that it's part of what I do really enjoy, which is the transformations my clients have. That makes it all worth it. Well, you need to know those details too, and you're never going to learn that in just school alone.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not kind of having a dig at the education service, is it? It's just not practical. They couldn't give you that much detail and that much information, which is where in the UK we have work experience where the students spend 1 week, 2 weeks if they're really lucky, kind of in a work environment, and that gives them a much better idea of the kind of idea. But the difficulty is that they do it when they're 14.
Yeah.
So even those who have got a kind of a good idea of roughly what they want to do, they're still limited on whether or not that company is going to be able to give them the time and the positioning, aren't they?
Exactly, because they're so young, they can only do so much at that age, depending on what the job is.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to just whatever. But yeah, no, learning through school, the practical part of it, and learning how you test, how you react under stressful situations. That's like school has definitely allowed me to figure that out. But also allowed me to be like, okay, what do I really want? And being in the workforce has also allowed me that a lot. And now I know, and again, like you've said too, like where I am right now, things still can pivot, but I know how I react to things, and I know how I learn. I know how going back to school, I learn the way that I learn, like, is hands on. Yeah. Going back to school and learning it that way, and that's another thing that school allows you to do, is figuring out how you learn. So that's a big thing that people and your students will learn as well. Is okay, maybe I'm not a good tester, but I know if you get me in the job, if you get me into that thing, I learn very quickly, kind of deal. So that's
where the internships or apprenticeships and things like that help those sort of students much better than things like the university, and that's what helps them to decide which route they're going to take. So I mean, I could I could talk about this subject forever.
Talk obviously forever too. Yes.
So looking at the students that are watching this, kind of looking at you and kind of going, oh my god, that's me, I'm exactly like that lady, and this is everything that I am. What one piece of advice from your learning, from your journey, could you leave them with?
That it's okay to be multi-passionate. That it's okay that you might, like I said, I have my declutter business as well, but I also have what I say declutter your workload, but it's technically VA work as well on the side, because it's something that I like keeping busy. It's something that I like helping more people. And at first I was like, oh, do I need to go this way or that way? And I'm like, I need to do both.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay to do both, and not to, like, as much as, especially in the online business, they say niche down, niche down. I'm like, I niche down too much, and then I lost myself. I was like, I don't even know where to go. So I expanded a bit, and now I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah, and you go in and out until you're comfortable, and you've got that sort of point where you go, actually, this is for me, this is perfect. And I think this is the great learning for these students that are watching now, is that out there is a lot of advice, and it's great, and I would want you to listen to all the advice, but you only have to take the advice that actually feels right. You don't have to take all the advice that's given to you.
Exactly. And also be comfortable with change, because change is the only constant. So
don't start me on change. We'll be here for another 4 hours.
Exactly right.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story. I think I love what you do as a declutter kind of coach. I think that kind of thing is amazing, and it's a great example of being able to create a job if what you want isn't out there. So I think you're amazing, and thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me.